Ambassador Marcus Webb stood in the observation gallery of the Cosmic Assembly headquarters, watching the stars through the massive transparent dome. Somewhere out there, among those distant lights, were 12 human colonies struggling to survive under regulations designed to keep them weak. "They're ready for us," said Dr. Sarah Chen, stepping beside him. Her reflection in the glass showed the same exhaustion Marcus felt. 50 years. 50 years of petitions, negotiations, and carefully worded requests. 50 years of being treated like children asking permission from adults. "How many times have we stood here, Sarah?" Marcus asked quietly. "Too many," she replied. "But maybe this time will be different." Marcus wanted to believe her. The Cosmic Assembly governed 200 species across 40,000 star systems. For 3 millennia, it had maintained order through a complex system of tiers, regulations, and controlled access to technology. Humanity had been granted provisional membership 150 years ago, but had never progressed beyond the lowest tier. The assembly chamber was a masterwork of engineering and intimidation. Circular tiers rose like an amphitheater, with the most powerful species occupying the highest levels. The Draxel hegemony sat at the apex, their crystalline forms refracting the chamber's light into rainbow patterns. Below them were the Keltheran star courts, the Morpheus Collective, and dozens of other ancient civilizations. Humanity's platform was at ground level, barely elevated above the chamber floor. Marcus walked to his position, joined by his team. Captain James Rodriguez carried himself with military precision, despite wearing a diplomat's formal attire. Kai Okonkwo, their trade specialist, clutched a data tablet containing economic projections that would never be seriously considered. High Magistrate Vornthax of the Draxel hegemony opened the session. His voice resonated through translation devices in a dozen frequencies. "The Cosmic Assembly recognizes the human petition for access to quantum fold technology and elevation to secondary tier status." Marcus activated his platform's speaker system. "Honored representatives, humanity respectfully requests—" "Denied," Vornthax interrupted. "The petition is denied on grounds of species immaturity and insufficient contribution to galactic stability." The words hit like a physical blow. Marcus had prepared a comprehensive presentation, economic data showing human innovation, cultural exchanges demonstrating peaceful intentions, security records proving humans could be trusted with advanced technology. None of it mattered. "May I ask the specific reasoning?" Marcus kept his voice level despite the anger building in his chest. A Keltheran representative activated her platform. Her species resembled floating jellyfish, bioluminescent patterns pulsing across translucent skin. "Humanity has existed as a spacefaring civilization for only 400 years. Most assembly species have maintained interstellar presence for 10,000 years or more. Your perspective is limited." "Limited," Marcus repeated. "Our colonies are dying because we lack the technology to establish sustainable fusion networks. We've demonstrated the capability to manage such technology safely. We only ask for access to what would save millions of lives." Vornthax's crystalline structure shifted colors, indicating what Marcus had learned was amusement. Humanity's colonies were established without assembly guidance. The consequences of that recklessness are humanity's burden to bear. "We requested guidance," Sarah Chen interjected, unable to remain silent. 17 times over the past century, each request was denied pending tier elevation. Each tier elevation request was denied pending demonstration of capability. We're trapped in a circular logic designed to keep us powerless. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Speaking out of turn was a breach of protocol. Marcus placed a hand on Sarah's shoulder, but he didn't disagree with her assessment. "Dr. Chen raises a valid concern," said a voice from the middle tiers. Marcus looked up to see Representative Thalosa of the Voran Free States, a relatively minor species that had always shown humanity more respect than most. The Assembly should consider. The Assembly has considered, Vornthax had him off. The human petition is denied. Furthermore, given the aggressive expansion rate of human colonies and the concerning population growth, the Assembly hereby imposes new regulations. Marcus felt his stomach drop. This wasn't supposed to happen. Denial was expected, but new restrictions? A holographic document materialized in the center of the chamber. Kai's fingers flew across his tablet, analyzing the text as it appeared. No, they can't. But they could, and they were. The new regulations were devastating. Human ships would be restricted to pre-approved trade routes, adding weeks to journey times. Colonies would face quotas on population growth enforced by Assembly monitors. Access to raw materials from certain asteroids and moons would require permits that could take years to process. Most crushing of all, humans would be prohibited from forming trade agreements with species outside the Assembly without explicit approval.
These regulations are designed to strangle us, Captain Rodriguez said, his military training keeping his voice steady even as fury burned in his eyes. We can't survive under these conditions. Bornthax's colors shifted again. Then humanity will need to demonstrate greater compliance with Assembly standards. Perhaps in another century, you will be ready for the responsibilities you currently seek. Another century. Millions would die in that time. Human colonies barely surviving now would collapse completely. Children would grow up in poverty while alien species hoarded technologies that could save them. Marcus looked around the chamber. Some representatives showed what might have been sympathy. Most displayed indifference. The Draxel and their allies appeared satisfied, pleased to have put humanity back in its place. He thought about his daughter, living on the colony at Proxima Station. She was a teacher, working with children in facilities that barely had enough power to maintain life support. He thought about reports from the mining colonies, where workers died from equipment failures that advanced technology could prevent. He thought about hospitals unable to treat diseases that were trivial for species with access to quantum medical scanners. He thought about 50 years of bowing his head and accepting insults, 50 years of please and thank you and we understand your concerns, 50 years of playing by rules designed to ensure humanity never won. Something inside Marcus broke, not with violence, but with clarity. He straightened his shoulders and looked directly at Vornthax. No. The single word echoed in the sudden silence. Explain yourself, Vornthax demanded. No, Marcus repeated. We will not accept these regulations. We will not wait another century. We will not continue participating in a system designed to keep us subordinate. Sarah gripped his arm. Marcus, what are you doing? He turned to his team, seeing shock on their faces, but beneath the shock, he also saw something else. Hope. I'm done asking permission, Marcus said. Then he raised his voice to address the chamber. Humanity hereby withdraws from the Cosmic Assembly, effective immediately. We thank you for the opportunities provided, but we will no longer participate in an organization that treats us with such contempt. The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted in dozens of languages. Platforms swiveled as species tried to comprehend what was happening. Vornthax's crystalline form pulsed with angry red light. You cannot simply leave. The Assembly governs all civilized space. Then I suppose we'll find out how civilized we really are, Marcus replied. He gestured to his team. Gather your belongings. We're going home. Sarah's eyes were wide, but she nodded. Kai closed his tablet with shaking hands. Rodriguez maintained his military bearing, though Marcus saw approval in the captain's expression. They walked toward the exit as the chamber descended into pandemonium. Behind them, Vornthax was calling for order, demanding they return, threatening consequences for this unprecedented action. Marcus didn't look back. In the corridor outside, Sarah finally spoke. Do you realize what you just did? We have trade agreements, defense pacts, technology licenses. Everything runs through the Assembly. Everything that keeps us weak runs through the Assembly, Marcus corrected.
Sarah, we've been playing a game we can't win. The rules are designed to keep us at the bottom. The only way to change that is to stop playing. But how will we survive? Kai asked. Earth's economy is integrated with assembly markets. Our colonies depend on assembly-controlled shipping lanes. We don't have the technology to— We'll find another way, Captain Rodriguez interrupted. We always have. Humans are good at that. Marcus appreciated the support, even as doubt gnawed at him. He'd just committed humanity to an uncertain future. They would be isolated, cut off from assembly resources, vulnerable to species who might see Earth's independence as an opportunity for exploitation. But they would be free. His communicator buzzed. It was a priority message from Earth's President Chen. Marcus had acted with her secret authorization, but she'd probably hoped it wouldn't come to this. He opens the message. The whole planet is watching. Whatever happens next, we are with you. Make it count. Marcus looked at his team. We're going to need to move fast. Call every human station, every colony, every ship. I want our people out of assembly territories within 48 hours. Anyone who wants to stay can, but I suspect most will choose to come home. And then what? Sarah asked. Marcus smiled, though it felt strange on his face after so many years of diplomatic masks. Then we show them what humanity can do when we're not weighed down by their chains. We innovate, we build, we find allies among the species the assembly has rejected, and we prove that respect is earned, not granted by ancient bureaucracies. As they walked toward the docking bay where their ship waited, Marcus Webb felt something he hadn't experienced in decades: genuine hope. They'd spent so long trying to fit into someone else's system that they'd forgotten what made humanity special. The ability to adapt, the refusal to accept defeat, the stubborn, persistent, sometimes irrational belief that things could be better. Behind them, the cosmic assembly was learning a lesson that would reshape the galaxy. You could push humanity down, restrict them, insult them, and dismiss them. But if you pushed them too far, they wouldn't fight back with violence. They'd simply walk away and build something better without you. The stars waited outside the station's windows, infinite and free. Somewhere among them was humanity's future, undefined and uncertain. Marcus had never felt more alive.
6 months had passed since the walkout, and the galaxy was learning an uncomfortable truth. Humanity had been holding things together in ways nobody had noticed. High Magistrate Vornthax reviewed the reports with growing unease. His crystalline structure flickered through colors that indicated deep concern, dark purples and grays that his species reserved for genuine crisis. Explain this again, he demanded of the economic coordinator standing before his platform. The coordinator, a Morpheus Collective member whose gaseous form swirled nervously in its containment field, consulted its data stream. The shipping delays began 3 weeks after human withdrawal. We assumed other species would fill the gap, but human vessels had been handling 37% of short-range cargo transport across assembly space. Why were we dependent on such a junior species for critical infrastructure? Because they charged 60% less than assembly standard rates, Magistrate. They were efficient, fast, and they asked for very little in return beyond basic fuel costs and docking fees. Vornthax's colors shifted to angry orange. Then hire other species to replace them. We have, at triple the cost. Many commercial operations cannot afford the increase. 17 trade hubs have requested emergency economic relief. This was just one report among dozens flooding in daily. Human medical personnel had quietly departed from frontier stations, leaving healthcare gaps on 40 worlds. Human engineers who maintained critical systems on mixed-species outposts had gone home. Human teachers, artists, mechanics, traders, all had pulled back to their own territories. The assembly had barely noticed humans when they were present. Their absence was impossible to ignore. Representative Kolvar of the Kelthoran Star Courts activated her platform. Perhaps we should consider reaching out to Earth, explain that we may have been hasty in our judgment. Absolutely not, Vornthax declared. We do not negotiate with species who abandon their commitments. The humans made their choice. They will suffer the consequences of isolation. But 6 months became 8, and the consequences seemed to be falling elsewhere. On Earth, in the newly established headquarters of the Independent Human Coalition, Ambassador Marcus Webb was discovering that freedom came with terrifying responsibility. "We have 14 colony governors requesting immediate assistance," reported Kai Okonkwo. "Food supplies are critical on 3 worlds. Energy production is failing on 2 more. Marcus, we're barely holding things together." Sarah Chen entered the room carrying a tablet and wearing a smile that seemed out of place given Kai's dire report. "Or we're about to stop barely holding together and start actually thriving." "Explain," Marcus said, gesturing her to continue. "I've been in talks with the Kessari nomads. You know them, the species that's been drifting on generation ships for 800 years because the Assembly refused them settlement rights after their homeworld was destroyed." Marcus nodded. The Kessari were one of dozens of species existing on the margins of Assembly space, too proud to beg for acceptance, but too weak to challenge the established order. Sarah continued. "They have expertise in closed-system agriculture we desperately need, growing food in environments with minimal resources. They've been doing it for centuries out of necessity." "What do they want in return?" Captain Rodriguez asked, ever the pragmatist. "A planet," Sarah said simply. "We have 12 colonies that could support larger populations. They're asking for settlement rights on one of them. Not ownership, they're proposing a shared governance model where humans and Kessari work together." Marcus sat back in his chair. The old assembly model would never have allowed this. Species were territorial, protective of their worlds, convinced that sharing meant weakness. But humanity was writing new rules now. "What about the Threen Collective?" Marcus asked. "You mentioned them last week." Kai pulled up a star chart. "The Threen control significant mineral resources in the outer veil, but they lack the technology to extract them efficiently. They've been trying to negotiate with the Assembly for 200 years. The Assembly keeps offering them unfair contracts, 90% of the profits going to Assembly corporations in exchange for providing equipment." "Let me guess," Rodriguez said. "We can offer them something better?" "We provide the extraction technology at cost. They provide raw materials at fair market rates. Both species benefit. Both maintain sovereignty." It was so simple, so obvious. Yet the Assembly had built an entire economy on the principle that someone always had to lose for someone else to win. Sarah leaned forward. "There's more. The Voran Free States want to open formal diplomatic relations. They're talking about leaving the Assembly entirely to join whatever framework we are building." "We don't have a framework," Marcus pointed out. "Then maybe it's time we built one," Sarah replied. 3 months later, representatives from 11 species gathered on Horizon Station, humanity's largest orbital facility. The station had been designed as a military outpost during the Assembly years, when humans were paranoid about being caught unprepared. Now it was being transformed into something new. Marcus stood at the head of a circular conference table, not a hierarchical amphitheater with tiers of importance, a simple circle where everyone could see everyone else as equals. "Thank you all for coming," he began. "We've been operating on informal agreements in personal relationships. It's time to formalize what we're building together." Ambassador Thalosa of the Voran Free States was the first to speak. His species resembled bipedal wolves with 6 arms and silver fur. "The question is, what exactly are we building? Another assembly? A human empire?" "Neither," Marcus said firmly. "The assembly failed because it was built on hierarchy and control. We're proposing something different, the Coalition of Free Worlds." He activated a holographic display showing the proposed charter. 3 core principles. First, equality. Every member species has equal voice regardless of population size, military strength, or economic power. 1 species, 1 vote on all major decisions. A Kessari representative named Veltara chittered her approval, her insectoid features animated. "The Assembly gave us no voice. You offer us the same voice as Earth itself?" "Yes," Sarah Chen confirmed.
Because good ideas can come from anywhere. Wisdom isn't proportional to fleet size. Second principle, Marcus continued, transparency. All treaties, all agreements, all decisions are public record. No secret deals that benefit some at the expense of others. This generated murmurs around the table. The assembly had thrived on backroom negotiations and classified agreements that most members never saw. Third principle, mutual benefit. We don't trade with each other, we trade with each other fairly. No exploitation, no predatory contracts, no using our strength to extract concessions from weakness. Corval, the Threne representative whose species resembled crystalline arachnids, tapped his limbs on the table in a gesture of consideration. Beautiful words, Ambassador Webb, but the assembly spoke beautiful words too in the beginning. How do we know humans won't simply recreate the same system with themselves at the top? It was a fair question, and Marcus had anticipated it. We're proposing that the coalition have no permanent leadership, he explained. The chairperson position rotates annually among all member species. Decisions require 75% approval, ensuring no single species or bloc can dominate. And, most importantly, any species can withdraw at any time, no questions asked. That last part seems dangerous, the LOSA observed. It makes the coalition fragile. Rodriguez spoke up. It makes it voluntary. Nobody stays because they're trapped. They stay because membership serves their interests. That's not fragility, that's honest foundation. The debate continued for hours. Representatives raised concerns, proposed amendments, challenged assumptions. Unlike the assembly sessions where lower-tier species barely dared to speak, this was genuine dialogue. Finally, as the station's artificial day cycle approached evening, Veltara stood. The Kasari nomads support this charter. We have drifted for 800 years. Perhaps it is time we had a home among friends rather than waiting for permission from those who see us as beneath them. One by one, the other species outed their support. The Voran Free States, the Threne Collective, the Orathi clans whose merchant families had been exploited by assembly trade regulations for generations. The Selen Federation, a collection of aquatic species that had been denied assembly membership for environmental incompatibility. By midnight station time, the Coalition of Free Worlds had 9 founding members. Sarah found Marcus in the observation deck afterward, watching the stars. "We did it," she said quietly. "We started it," Marcus corrected. "This is just the beginning. The real test comes when the assembly realizes we're not just surviving, we're building an alternative." "Let them realize," Sarah replied. "We've spent too long caring what they think." Back in assembly space, Vornthax was realizing exactly that. The reports had gone from concerning to alarming to catastrophic. The Voran Free States had formally withdrawn from the assembly. 2 other species had reduced their participation to observer status. Trade volumes were down 40% as merchants discovered they could operate more profitably through human-controlled space, where regulations were simpler and fees were minimal. Most troubling were the intelligence reports about scientific collaboration. Human researchers working with Kasari biologists had developed a new agricultural technique that could increase food production by 300% on marginal worlds. They published the technique freely, no patents, no licensing fees, no corporate ownership. Anyone could use it. The Assembly's agricultural corporations were furious at losing their monopoly, but their fury meant nothing against hunger solved. Similarly, human engineers partnering with Threne geologists created mining equipment that was both more efficient and more environmentally sustainable than assembly standard technology. Again, they shared the designs openly. "They're giving everything away," fumes Representative Draxith of the Draxel hegemony. "Don't they understand the value of intellectual property?" "They understand something we forgot," a quiet voice said. Everyone turned to look at Junior Magistrate Lysara, a young Draxel who'd recently earned her position through merit rather than inheritance, a rarity in their species. "Explain," Vornthax commanded. "They understand that power shared is power multiplied," Lysara said. "The Assembly hoards technology to maintain control.
But every species they help becomes stronger, more capable, more likely to contribute new innovations. They're building a network of mutual advancement rather than a hierarchy of controlled dependency. Philosophical nonsense, Draxeth snapped. Power shared is power diluted. But Vornthox wasn't so sure anymore. He'd spent 3 centuries believing that the Assembly's way was the only way. Now he watched human civilization not just surviving without them, but thriving, growing, attracting allies and partners who came willingly rather than submitting reluctantly. The worst moment came when the Draxel hegemony's own economists delivered their projection. If current trends continued, human-led trade networks would exceed assembly commerce within 5 years. The coalition was smaller, but it was growing exponentially while the assembly stagnated. "We should send an envoy," Lysara suggested. "Open dialogue, perhaps find common ground." "We should crush them before they become a true threat," Draxeth countered. Vornthox considered both options. Military action against the coalition would be messy. The humans had allies now, and some of those allies had significant defensive capabilities. More importantly, it would prove the humans right, that the assembly maintained order through force rather than genuine cooperation. "We send an envoy," Vornthox decided, "but not to negotiate, to observe. I want to understand what they're building before we decide how to respond." What he didn't say aloud was that part of him wanted to understand because the Assembly's way, his way, suddenly seemed less certain than it had for 3,000 years. In the observation deck of Horizon Station, Marcus Webb watched another ship arrive. This one carried representatives from the Nyx Concordat, a species interested in joining the coalition. The galaxy was changing. Humanity hadn't conquered it with weapons or wealth or ancient wisdom. They'd changed it by offering something radical: respect given freely, knowledge shared openly, and partnership built on genuine equality. It turned out that was more powerful than all the Assembly's regulations and hierarchies combined.